I only recently got the opportunity to play through Nier Automata, and in a lot of ways it lived up to the massive hype it has received. There are a million things I could praise about this game, and in future videos I might do just that. If for any reason you watching this video haven't played the game yet and are thinking about it, please do. It is an amazing experience and a brilliantly designed video game. But with all that said, in this video I'm not going to be talking about how good of a game Automata is. Right now I want to talk about my biggest problem with Automata, and that is Route B. I need to be careful in articulating my issue here because I don't want to only present my problem as a surface level one. What I mean is that my problem with Route B is not just the more common complaint that it is repetitive, although I think that complaint is justified. My issue is that this repetitiveness can have the opposite effect of which it was intended for, and this reversal of effect can cause players to miss out on some very important yet non-required parts of the game. So if you haven't played Automata, let me break it down. There are two main characters at the start of the game, androids 2B and 9S. You start the game as 2B, and after a while will eventually reach ending A. However, there are actually 5 main endings to the game that you unlock in a linear fashion as you progress. After achieving ending A, you are given control of 9S, at around the same in-game time as when you started with 2B. This is Route B, and after playing it through, you'll get ending B. And after that, keep playing and you'll get ending C, D, and E, and you'll have properly beaten the game. However, for this video, I don't care about all those latter routes, only Route B. I want to talk about Route B because unlike the other routes, B is essentially a repeat of a route. It covers the same game time as Route A, and because a lot of Route A includes 2B and 9S together, Route B has a lot of its events essentially copy-pasted over from Route A. I could end my complaint here, but that would be a bit too basic of a qualm to make a whole video about. Even though one of the more common complaints against Automata is precisely this repetition. And in defense of Route B, one could quickly point to the different combat styles, perspective differences between 9S and 2B, presentation of new information in Route B, and the different side quests, all as evidence of distinction between routes A and B. And these are all valid points. Granted, the simplicity of the 9S hacking can get a bit stale. Route B does offer a lot of new information about the story and world that changes how we see and understand events that are shared between the routes. The little films shown before each new zone and 9S's own revelations as two examples of these informational differences. But I think everyone could agree that Route B is repetitive to some extent. It's an integral part of the route. It was clearly designed with that repetition in mind. You're supposed to repeat the events of Route A, but by gaining better insight and understanding, Route B is supposed to take on its own form. I believe that this repetition has a very specific purpose. I think Yoko Taro and Platinum Games wanted this repetition to push the player into exploring the many side quests that are only available to Route B. If you're forced to replay a significant portion of the game, you'll be yearning for something new to do to combat the monotony and boredom of replaying content. Ideally, these new side quests show up and offer the player the perfect opportunity to rid themselves of said monotony. New missions that reveal new information and offer new gameplay scenarios are what people want to see as they progress through the game. And while the main quest of Route B does offer some new information and insights, it's not quite enough to really get rid of those negative feelings of boredom. At least it wasn't in my experience. In a perfect playthrough, the player may start to feel bored in Route B, but soon finds all of this new content, story, and gameplay found in the side quests, and quickly forgets any of those feelings of tediousness. That is what I think was intended for Route B, and hopefully that's what happened for most people. Considering the game was given such outstanding reviews, I'm assuming that this was how most people experienced the game. Unfortunately though, I did not have this experience. For me, this repetition worked in the opposite way. Instead of pushing me to the side quests to break up monotony, it pushed me to rush through the main quest and suffer much more rapid repetition than intended. Let me try to explain why I think this happened. After starting Route B at the completely new gameplay section with 9S, I felt that the whole route would be in that style, really emphasizing the time 9S was away from 2B to offer new gameplay. However, I soon realized that a lot of the route was actually covering the time spent with 2B, and this meant replaying significant chunks of the game. This, coupled with some time spent on basic side quests like gathering materials for the Resistance camp's shopkeeps and rebooting angles made me think that Route B was essentially a repeat of Route A, but with a couple new cinematics and better insight into 9S's mind, which made me view Route B as something to get over with as opposed to something to really enjoy in its own right. I don't argue that things like those short cinematics about the machines weren't important or didn't help me understand the game, but they were not nearly enough to differentiate Route B on their own, especially because when I first viewed them in the playthrough of Route B, they were really confusing and I was unsure of exactly what they meant. It wasn't until I really finished the game and learned more about it that I got a better understanding. The feelings of monotony and boredom descended upon me with no adversaries to fight back against them. I didn't see the side quests as the beacons of hope they were meant to be. See, in Route A, I completed a good majority of the side quests. They were fun and written well and did a great job of world building, but they didn't feel like they included a lot of key information that would drastically improve or change my understanding of the game. They definitely helped paint a better picture of the universe I was in, and I did enjoy them, but I didn't get a feeling of weight in most of them. And that was totally okay. They're side quests after all. I have the main quest to learn key information, so I don't need side quests for that. This meant that I didn't give a huge amount of emphasis to the importance of side quests. And then in Route B, when the main quest often lacked new key information, or at least lacked what I could recognize as new key information, I didn't know to prioritize the side quests. As a result, I completed drastically fewer side quests and was in more of a rush to progress the main quest and to get to a point where I started getting new key information and story progression. This caused my Route B playthrough to suffer a lot. I was essentially deprived of a significant amount of story information and world context while having nothing to break up the monotony inherent in Route B. This left me feeling underwhelmed. Once I actually finished the entire game, I was somewhat upset that that was it. I very much think that my not so great experience with Route B tainted my overall appreciation of the game, especially when I first finished it. But then I saw some videos talking about why people think Automata is such a good game and why it's so loved. And through this, I was able to make a connection that really let me understand and see Automata in a new light. I'll try to explain this epiphany, if I can call it that. The storytelling in Automata is very hands-off. The game has a lot of information and can get really confusing for anyone. That's part of the point. Those really dedicated to understanding the game can play through every quest and read every bit of data to form a clear picture of everything that happened from the start of the game to ending E. Those that aren't as dedicated can still have a fun time and play through the main parts of the game, they'll just be left with more questions. So here's the connection. This is actually a really similar method of storytelling to that of Dark Souls, a method that I praised and lauded in my video about how Souls tells a story. So how could I get mad at Automata for doing the same thing that I loved one of my favorite franchises doing? Once I mulled this over for a bit, I started to realize that what I disliked in Automata was that this hands-off approach kind of backfired for me. It wasn't an inherent problem in the style, just that the implementation unfortunately missed the mark in my case. See, there's one big distinction between these games that I need to bring up that opened up the possibility for the bad time I had in Automata. Automata is a very story-driven game, whereas Dark Souls is much more gameplay-driven. Evidently, using this hands-off kind of storytelling for a story-driven game is dangerous. So in all honesty, I don't think Dark Souls has very good main stories. They're generally fairly basic and really not the focus of any of the games. However, I think that's fine as the Soulsborne games are not story-driven games. They would no doubt be better if they had good main stories, but the games can still be enjoyed in their entirety with what stories they have. Souls games focus much more on their world building and even more on their gameplay than they do their main stories. They actually tell a lot of their best stories through the lore, and through the lore is where From Software employs this hands-off technique. The lore of the Souls universe is complex, riveting, intriguing, and mysterious. It lets those who really want to figure out all the complex stories do so through a lot of research and dedication, and others that don't want to invest that kind of time and work don't have to. They can enjoy the game for what it was primarily made for, which is the world and the gameplay, and get a basic understanding of the story and lore. And if they want, they can check out the lore theories on forums and videos like those I have made. Here is where I think the main similarity lies between these two games. Tying directly back to Nier and why I said this method was dangerous, Automata's focus is more so the narrative than it is the gameplay. Using the hands-off approach of storytelling in a narrative-based game means that some people may miss out on valuable parts of the main focus of the game, the narrative. This is kind of how I felt after finishing the game. In Dark Souls, that wouldn't be a problem because its main focus is gameplay, not narrative. If some players lose out on the narrative, it's totally okay because none of them will lose out on the gameplay, which is the game's main focus. The game is still delivering its main goal to every single player. But in Automata, the focus is the narrative, and the hands-off approach means some players might lose out on the narrative. This means players might lose out on the main focus of the game, which is never something that should happen. This allows for some players, although thankfully it seems like only a minority, to slip through the cracks, so to say, and lose out on fully experiencing the core identity of Automata. This is my gripe with the game, that it gives the opportunity, however small, for some people to miss out on crucial parts of its main focus, which, as I said, I don't think any game should do. If I were to guess what the best fix for this would be, I would say add some of the more impactful side quests to the required missions group. Pretty simple, and I don't think it would ruin the flow or the design philosophy of the game too much. It could still maintain the hands-off storytelling approach by keeping lots of information in side quests and small world details, but it would make sure that no player slips through the cracks of the main focus, the narrative of the game. At the end of the day, maybe this design was completely intentional by Yoko Taro, and if so, I respect that, but I think it was the wrong design choice. I guess I feel that the hands-off approach was applied just a little too strongly for a narrative-based game. For most people, it didn't make a difference, which means even if this is a flaw, it isn't too big of one on the large scale. But still, cleaning this mechanic up could make the game that much better, which at the end of the day is what we would all want, for games to keep getting better. And I would like to reiterate that Nier Automata definitely did achieve this. It has continued the tradition of raising the bar for great video games, and all those involved in making it should be very proud. This video just showed my single biggest gripe with it, and with so many people already heaping on praise for the game, I thought it made sense to offer up some criticism. Let me know what you guys think about Automata and Route B and Yoko Taro's design choices. I'd like to thank the YouTuber ValkyrieAurora for her videos on Nier, which are the ones I mentioned that helped me make the connection between Automata and the Souls series, and see Automata in a more sympathetic light. This video actually shows my views in the most positive they've been in since I finished the game. If you're interested in Automata or any of the rest of its series, she has a lot of good videos on it. I may make some more Automata videos, but we'll see how people like this one and how much more I have to say. Thank you for watching, and have the swaggiest of days.